I stood in my own daughter's house, surrounded by balloons and laughter and people I helped raise, people who watched me build everything from dirt and sweat. And not one of them, not one, thought I should have been invited. The music was loud, too loud, like they were trying to drown out the truth. My grandbaby's face was on everything, banners, napkins, balloons floating near the ceiling. But my face, my presence, they'd erased me, planned it that way. When I walked through that door, the room went silent. You know that kind of silence, the kind that happens when people realize they've been caught doing something they knew was wrong all along. My daughter's face went pale. Not surprised, pale, caught pale. And her husband, the man who'd been in the hospital with a motorcycle accident just hours before, he stood right there by the punch bowl, smiling like he owned the world. I felt something crack inside my chest that day. Not my heart breaking. No, this was different. This was the sound of a bridge burning. The sound of a father realizing his own child had looked him in the eye and chosen a lie over him. I want you to hear this story, every word of it. Because if you've ever loved someone who repaid you with betrayal, if you've ever sacrificed for people who threw it back in your face, if you've ever wondered how far family should go before you say enough, this one's for you. Before we get into it, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me where in this world you're watching from. These stories connect us across cities, countries, continents. I need to know I'm not alone in this, that you understand. My name is Owen James Mitchell. I'm 73 years old now, but this story takes place when I was 68, living in North Carolina, right outside Charlotte. I'd built my life from nothing, and I mean nothing. Grew up in a house with holes in the floor and winters that cut through the walls like knives. Watched my mama work 3 jobs and still go to bed hungry so we could eat. That hunger taught me something money can't buy. Respect for the dollar. Respect for what it takes to earn it. And when I finally made something of myself, when I built my construction company from a borrowed truck and a prayer, I swore I'd teach my children that same respect. I had 3 kids, 2 sons who got it, who understood the value of a dollar, the weight of hard work, the price of keeping your word. And then there was my daughter. God help me, I love that girl. But loving someone and liking what they become, those are 2 different things. Let me take you back. Let me show you how it all started, how a father's love became a weapon used against him, how good intentions paved a road straight to hell. 19 years before that party, I sat in my home office going over the books. It was a Thursday night, late September, and the crickets outside were singing their last songs before winter came. My house, the one I built with my own hands, beam by beam, sat on 4 acres of land I'd bought when people said I was crazy to invest in that area. Too far out, they said. Nothing but trees and mud. But I knew, I always knew, that nothing became something. And that something made me a man people respected in 3 counties. My oldest son, Marcus, was 26 then. He'd just become site manager on our biggest project, a medical complex that would put my company on a whole different level. He sat across from me that night, glasses sliding down his nose like they always did, going through invoices line by line. "Dad, we're 10,000 under budget on the concrete," he said, tapping his pen against the ledger. "If we lock in the supplier tomorrow, we can bank that difference for the next bid." I smiled, not just because he was right, which he was, but because he cared. He understood that 10,000 saved today meant 20,000 earned tomorrow. That kind of thinking? You can't teach that to someone who doesn't want to learn. Call them first thing, I told him. And Marcus? Yeah, Dad? You're ready to run this company one day. You know that, right? He looked up at me, and for a second I saw the little boy who used to sit on my lap while I drew building plans. The one who'd ask a million questions about measurements and materials. The one who wanted to be just like his old man. "I learned from the best," he said quietly. My middle child, David, was 23. He'd taken a different path, went to business school, got his MBA, came back to handle our accounting and expansion plans. Smart as a whip and twice as careful. He called that same night around 9 just to tell me he'd secured a line of credit for the new equipment we needed. "The terms are solid, Dad," David said over the phone. "Prime rate plus 1 point. I negotiated down from 2. That's my boy, I said, pride swelling in my chest. You saved us 20 grand over 5 years. I learned from you, he replied. Every dollar counts. 2 sons, 2 different paths, same values. And then there was Simone, my daughter, 20 years old that September, beautiful like her mama, Lord rest her soul, with the same smile that could light up a room or break your heart depending on which way it was pointed. But where her mama had substance beneath that beauty, Simone, she was all shine and no steel. She came into my office that night. I remember because it was right after I hung up with David. She wore a dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, carrying shopping bags from stores I couldn't even pronounce. Hey, Daddy, she said, kissing my cheek. Her perfume was expensive. Everything about Simone was expensive. Baby girl, I said, looking at the bags. What's all this? Oh, just some things I needed. She waved her hand like it was nothing. There's this charity gala next month, and I have to look the part, you know. I took a breath, counted to 5 like I always did before I spoke when it came to Simone's spending. You work 20 hours a week at that boutique, I said carefully. How much they paying you? Daddy, don't start. Her smile dimmed. It's not about the money, it's about presence, networking. You always said relationships are everything in business. I said authentic relationships, built on respect and value, not dresses and appearances. She rolled her eyes, actually rolled them at me. You don't understand the world I'm in, she said. Things are different now. People judge you on how you present yourself. That's just reality. Marcus, still sitting there with his ledgers, caught my eye. He didn't say anything. Didn't need to. The look said it all. Here we go again. I'd had this conversation with Simone 100 times, 1,000 times, ever since she turned 16 and discovered that having a successful father meant she could have things other kids couldn't. But somewhere along the way, having things became needing things. And needing became deserving. And deserving became entitled. Simone, I said, standing up, come here. Look at this. I pulled out the company's quarterly report, the real one, not the public version, the one that showed every dollar coming in and going out. You see this number? I pointed to our net profit. That's what we made last quarter. Looks like a lot, doesn't it? She nodded. Now look at this. I showed her the operating expenses, equipment maintenance, insurance, payroll for 63 families, truck payments, tool replacements, permit fees, legal fees, emergency funds for when jobs go wrong, and they always do sometimes. I watched her face. She was looking, but she wasn't seeing. After all that, I continued, you know what I take home? About 15% of that top number. And you know what I do with most of that? I save it, invest it, build for the future, for you kids, for grandkids I haven't even met yet. I know, Daddy, you've told me. But you're not hearing me, baby. I put my hands on her shoulders. Money is a tool, not a toy. You treat it like a toy, and it disappears. You treat it like a tool, and it builds something that lasts. She hugged me then. I know, Daddy. I'll do better. I promise. I wanted to believe her. God knows I did. But promises are just breath unless there's change behind them. That was September. By November, she'd met Brandon. Brandon Pierce walked into my life at Thanksgiving dinner. Simone brought him home without warning, like she was bringing home a puppy she'd found on the street and decided to keep. Daddy, this is Brandon, she said, practically glowing. Brandon, this is my father, Owen Mitchell. He shook my hand, firm grip, I'll give him that, and smiled with too many teeth showing. You know that kind of smile, the kind salesmen use when they're trying to sell you something you don't need. Mr. Mitchell, it's an honor, Brandon said. Simone talks about you constantly. Everything you've built, the business, this beautiful home, it's truly impressive. Red flag number 1. He was impressed by what I had, not who I was. Call me Owen, I said, studying him. What do you do, Brandon? I'm in marketing, he said, which is what people say when they're between jobs but don't want to admit it. Social media strategy, brand development, influencer management. It's the future of business, really. Marcus, carving the turkey, caught my eye again. His expression said, Lord, help us. Influencer management, I repeated. That mean you have a real job or you just take pictures of your food? Simone's face fell. Daddy, but Brandon laughed. Actually laughed like I told a joke. I love that, he said. That's exactly the kind of old school thinking that needs disrupting. No offense, sir, but the world has changed. You don't need a factory or an office anymore. You just need a phone and a following, and you can make six figures easy. 6 figures easy, I said slowly. How much you making now? The smile dimmed just a bit. Well, I'm building right now, investing in my brand. It takes capital to make capital, you know? So you're broke, Daddy? Simone looked mortified. I'm not broke, Brandon said, the smile completely gone now. I'm between growth phases. There's a difference. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was staring at this man like he'd hung the moon, like his empty words and expensive cologne made him something special. How long you two been dating? I asked. 3 months, Simone said quickly. But we just connected, Daddy. He gets me. 3 months, 90 days. And she was already bringing him home for Thanksgiving like he was family. The dinner went downhill from there. Brandon spent most of it talking about cryptocurrency and NFTs and passive income streams while eating my food and drinking my wine. Every time I tried to steer the conversation toward real business, contracts, clients, revenue, he'd deflect with buzzwords and vague promises. After dinner, Marcus pulled me aside in the kitchen. Dad, that guy's a parasite, he said quietly. You see it, right? Oh, I see it clear as day. Question is, does she? She's not going to listen to us. You know how she is. He was right. Simone had always been stubborn. When she loved something or someone, she loved hard and blind. No amount of reason could reach her. We'll give it time, I said. These things usually burn out on their own. But I was wrong. By January, they were engaged. The engagement party was at some rooftop bar in downtown Charlotte that charged $20 for a cocktail. Simone wore a dress that cost more than my first car, and Brandon wore a suit that probably cost more than my second one. I showed up with my sons, all of us in simple sport coats and ties. We looked out of place among the influencers and entrepreneurs who spent more time taking photos than actually celebrating. Daddy! Simone rushed over, ring finger extended. The diamond was big, too big. The kind of big that makes you wonder about the debt behind it. It's beautiful, baby, I said, and I meant it. Not the ring, the hope in her eyes. You happy? So happy, she said, squeezing my arm. Brandon is everything I've ever wanted, everything she'd ever wanted, not everything she needed. There's a difference. Brandon appeared with 2 champagne flutes, handed one to Simone. He didn't offer me one. Owen, glad you could make it. He clenched his glass against Simone's. This is just the beginning, man. Once we tie the knot, the opportunities are endless. Simone's got the connections. I've got the vision. We're going to build an empire. An empire, I repeated. Built on what exactly? His smile tightened. Built on innovation, disruption, being ahead of the curve. Those are words, son, not a business plan. Daddy, please, Simone said. Not tonight. Can we just celebrate? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. When had she stopped hearing me? When had my voice become just noise to her? Of course, I said quietly. Congratulations to both of you. I stayed for an hour. Watched them take selfies with strangers. Watched money get spent on bottles of champagne that nobody really drank. Watched my daughter transform into someone I barely recognized. David drove me home that night. You okay, Dad? He asked. I'm watching my daughter make a mistake I can't stop, I said. How okay can I be? Maybe it'll work out. Maybe he'll surprise us. I looked out the window at the city lights blurring past. You don't believe that any more than I do. He didn't respond, because we both knew the truth. We just weren't ready to say it out loud yet. They got married 4 months later, small ceremony, thank God. Just family and a few friends. I paid for most of it, tried to keep it reasonable, but Simone had other ideas. The flowers alone cost more than some weddings I'd been to, but I smiled through it. Walked her down the aisle, shook Brandon's hand and told him to take care of my little girl. I will, sir, he said. You have my word. Words. Always just words with him. The first year of their marriage, I barely saw them. Simone called occasionally, always asking how I was doing, but never really listening to the answer. It was like talking to someone who was already halfway out the door. Then, one Tuesday afternoon in June, she called with news. Daddy, I'm pregnant. My heart stopped. Then started again, beating different, faster, softer. You're going to be a grandpa, she said, and I could hear tears in her voice. Happy tears. Oh, baby girl, I said, sitting down at my desk. That's wonderful. That's when? December, right before Christmas. Can you believe it? I can, I said. I can believe it. And I could. Because despite everything, despite Brandon, despite the spending, despite the distance, this was still my daughter. This was still my blood. And now there would be new blood. A grandchild. Maybe this would change things, I thought. Maybe becoming parents would help them grow up. Find responsibility. Build something real. I should have known better. By October, 5 months into the pregnancy, they'd already maxed out 2 credit cards. I found out through David, who'd helped Simone with some financial paperwork she'd begged him not to tell me about. "Dad, she's in trouble," David said over lunch. "They owe $40,000 across 6 different cards. The interest alone is killing them." "40,000?" I set down my fork. "On what?" "Baby stuff, nursery furniture. A new car. Brandon said the old one wasn't safe for the baby. Designer maternity clothes, a baby moon to Aruba." I closed my eyes, breathed through my nose. "She asked you for money?" "Not directly, but I can read between the lines. Dad, they're drowning." "Let them swim," I said. "They got themselves into this. They can get themselves out." But even as I said it, I knew I didn't mean it. Not really, because that baby, my grandbaby, didn't ask for parents who couldn't manage money, didn't ask to be born into debt. 2 weeks later, Simone called about the baby shower. "Daddy, we have a problem." Here we go, I thought. What kind of problem? "Well, we really want to have the baby shower at the house, but the pool needs repairs. There's a crack, and the water's leaking out, and it just looks terrible. We can't have people over with the backyard looking like that. So fix it." Silence. Long silence. "We don't have the money right now," she finally said. "With all the baby expenses and everything else, we're tapped out, Daddy." I should have said no. Should have let them figure it out. Should have let natural consequences teach the lesson I couldn't. But I heard my daughter's voice, small, embarrassed, scared, and I heard my future grandchild's heartbeat somewhere in the background of that conversation. "How much it cost to fix?" I asked. The quotes we got were between $12,000 and $15,000. $15,000 to fix a pool they couldn't afford to maintain for a party they couldn't afford to throw. "I'll take care of it," I heard myself say. "Really?" "Daddy, oh my God, thank you so much. Brandon will be so relieved." "I'm not doing it for Brandon," I cut her off. "I'm doing it for you and that baby. This is a gift, Simone. You understand? A gift for my grandchild's celebration." "I know, Daddy. I know. Thank you. Thank you so much." I called my best contractor that afternoon, told him to go look at the pool, give me a real assessment, fix whatever needed fixing. "You sure about this, Owen?" he asked. "Word around town is your daughter's husband ain't nothing but talk." "I'm not doing it for him," I said again. "Just fix the pool." He did. Took 2 weeks. $15,000 exactly, counting labor and materials. I paid it out of my company account, marked it as a family gift, and didn't think twice about it. The baby shower was set for Saturday, November 18th. On Friday, November 17th, one day before the party, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. It was Simone. "Daddy," she said, and her voice was shaking, "I have bad news." "What happened? Is the baby okay?" "The baby's fine. It's Brandon. He had a motorcycle accident last night. He's in the hospital. We have to cancel the shower." My heart sank. Despite everything I thought about the man, I didn't wish harm on him. "How bad is it?" I asked. "Pretty bad. Broken leg, maybe some internal injuries. They're running tests. But Daddy, we can't have the shower now. I can't celebrate while he's in the hospital. You understand, right?" "Of course I understand, baby. You be with your husband. That's where you should be. The party don't matter." "Thank you, Daddy. I'm so sorry. All that work on the pool, and now don't worry about the pool. You worry about your family. I'll call people, let them know it's canceled." "Thank you. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl." I hung up and sat there in my kitchen, coffee going cold in my mug, watching the sun come up through the window. Something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it. Something in her voice, something too rehearsed, too prepared. But I pushed it away. She was stressed. Her husband was in the hospital. Of course, she sounded strange. I spent Friday calling relatives, telling them the shower was off. Most were understanding. Some were disappointed. One of them, my cousin Jerome, who I hadn't seen in probably 5 years, called me back around 2 in the afternoon. "Owen, you sure about this?" Jerome asked. "What do you mean, am I sure? Simone called me herself." "That's funny, Because I just got a text from Simone saying the shower's still on and asking what time I'll be there. The world tilted. What? Yeah, she sent it about an hour ago. Said, and I quote, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Party starts at 2." I sat down. Jerome, you sure? I'm looking at the text right now. You want me to send you a screenshot? No. No, I believe you. Listen, you going? I mean, I was planning on it. Unless you're telling me not to? My mind raced. There had to be an explanation. A mistake. Maybe she sent the text before the accident. Maybe. Jerome, do me a favor. Go to that party and call me the minute you get there. You're not going? I wasn't invited, I said slowly. Not really. That don't make no sense, Owen. Call me when you get there, I repeated and hung up. I sat in my living room for the next 20 hours, phone in my hand, waiting. Saturday morning came slow. You know how time moves when you're waiting for something you don't want to be true to prove itself true? That's how that morning felt. Every minute stretched like taffy, sticky and wrong. I tried to keep busy. Went out to my workshop, pretended to organize tools that didn't need organizing. Stared at the blueprints for a project I couldn't focus on. Kept checking my phone. No call from Simone asking where I was. No text apologizing for the confusion. Nothing. At 1:30 my phone rang. Jerome? Owen? Man, I'm at the house. And there's about 50 cars here, balloons everywhere, music playing, caterers setting up food. This ain't no canceled party, brother. The air went out of my lungs. You see Simone? Yeah, she's right there greeting people, looking happy, looking healthy. And Brandon? Hold on, pause, muffled sounds. Yeah, I see him too. He's by the pool, the one you fixed, wearing a polo shirt and khakis. Ain't no leg cast on him, ain't no hospital bracelet. He's walking around just fine, Owen, talking to people, laughing, drinking something with a little umbrella in it. I closed my eyes, felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not anger yet, that would come later. This was something else, something heavier. Disappointment. Owen, you there? Yeah. My voice sounded far away, even to myself. Yeah, I'm here. You want me to say something? 'Cause this is messed up, brother. This is real messed up. No, don't say nothing. I'll handle it. I hung up, stood there in my workshop, surrounded by a lifetime of building things, houses, businesses, relationships, and realized that sometimes the things you build can be destroyed by the people you built them for. I got in my truck. The drive to Simone's house took 25 minutes. I knew every turn, every light, every landmark. I'd driven there dozens of times since she moved in. Dropped off tools Brandon borrowed and never returned. Brought groceries when I knew money was tight. Fixed their water heater when it broke, and Brandon couldn't figure out how to relight the pilot. I'd built a relationship with my daughter's home, even when my relationship with my daughter was crumbling. When I pulled onto their street, I had to park 3 houses down because of all the cars. Brand new SUVs, luxury sedans, sports cars with custom rims, the kind of cars people drive when they're trying to look successful instead of actually being successful. I walked up the sidewalk, past the landscaping I'd helped plant, the mailbox I'd installed, toward the sound of music and laughter coming from the backyard. No one stopped me. No one asked who I was. I just walked through the side gate like I'd done 100 times before. The backyard was transformed. White tents with fabric billowing in the breeze, tables covered in blue and silver decorations. A banner across the patio that said, "Oh boy," with little footprints and rattles. The pool, my $15,000 gift, sparkled in the afternoon sun, surrounded by floating decorations shaped like baby bottles and ducks. There were easily 60 people there, maybe more. All dressed nice, all holding drinks, all celebrating the baby that was my blood, at a party I'd been erased from. I saw Simone first. She stood near the gift table, one hand on her belly, the other holding a glass of sparkling juice. She wore a light blue dress that probably cost more than the party itself. Her hair was done. Her makeup was perfect. She looked beautiful and happy, and so very far from the little girl who used to climb into my lap when she was scared of thunderstorms. Then she saw me. Her face went through about 5 emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, shock, panic, and finally something that looked like resignation. Like she'd known this moment was coming and had just been hoping it wouldn't come so soon. The woman next to her said something, but Simone wasn't listening. She was staring at me. I was staring at her. The music kept playing. People kept talking, but between us, there was silence. I walked toward her, and people started noticing, started nudging each other, started whispering. The crowd parted like water as I crossed the lawn, past the food table, past the games, past all the expensive things bought with money they didn't have. "Daddy," Simone said when I reached her, just that one word, not a question, not a greeting, just acknowledgement. "Simone," I kept my voice calm, level. "I thought the party was canceled." "Daddy, I can explain." "Where's your husband?" "The one who was in the hospital with a broken leg? The one with internal injuries?" Her mouth opened, closed. No words came out. "Right here, sir?" I turned. Brandon stood behind me holding a beer, not a scratch on him. No crutches, no bandages, no evidence of any accident at all. "You look pretty good for someone who had a motorcycle crash yesterday," I said. "Yeah, about that," he started. "Don't." I held up my hand. "Don't you dare stand there and insult me with more lies." "Not here." Not in front of all these people celebrating my grandchild. The music had stopped now. Every eye in that backyard was on us. I turned back to my daughter. "You told me your husband was hurt. You told me the party was canceled. You looked me in my face. Well, you talked to me on the phone, and you lied. You took my $15,000, let me fix this pool for a party I wasn't supposed to attend, and you lied." "Daddy, please, not here." "Where then?" My voice rose despite my intention to stay calm. "Where was I supposed to find out? When? After the baby's born? After you name him? After you need the next thing and come calling again?" "Mr. Mitchell," Brandon stepped forward. "This is our house, our party. You need to calm down." I looked at him, really looked at him, saw everything I'd been trying not to see for 2 years, the weakness, the entitlement, the emptiness behind the smile. "Your house?" I said quietly. "Your party? Built with what? Your money, your work, your sacrifice. Built with our lives," he said. "This is our family now, and we made a decision." "That I wasn't welcome," I finished. "Yeah, I got that part. What I don't got is why my daughter went along with it." I turned back to Simone, waited. She looked at Brandon, then at the ground, then finally at me. "He thought," she started, then stopped, started again. "We thought you'd just criticize everything. The decorations, the food, how much we spent. We wanted one day where we could just be happy without judgment." The words hit harder than any punch could have. "Judgment," I repeated. "That's what you call it when I try to teach you responsibility? When I try to help you avoid the mistakes I made? When I try to show you there's a difference between looking successful and being successful?" "See?" Brandon jumped in. "That's exactly what we're talking about. You can't help yourself. Even now, at what's supposed to be a celebration, you're giving lectures. You're always the expert, always right, always knowing better than everyone else." "I know better than to lie to family," I said. "I know better than to take a man's money under false pretenses. I know better than to teach my child that betrayal is okay as long as you call it something else." "Brandon's right, Daddy." Simone's voice was small but steady. "You do judge us. Every decision we make, every purchase, every plan, you judge it. And I'm tired of it. We both are." Something in my chest fractured. Not broke, not yet, but fractured, like glass with a crack running through it, still holding changed. "You're tired," I said slowly. "You're tired of the man who raised you, who worked 3 jobs so you could have dance lessons and summer camps, who built a business so you'd never know what hungry feels like, who fixed your pool for free as a gift so you could have this party. That man, you're tired of him." "That's not fair." "You're right," I cut her off. "It's not fair. None of this is fair. But that's what I've been trying to teach you all along, baby girl. Life ain't fair. Life don't care about your feelings or your plans or your designer dresses. Life cares about what you build, what you earn, what you can stand on when everything else falls apart." "We're building something," Brandon said. "It just doesn't look like your version of success." I turned to him. "What exactly are you building, son? Debt? Lies? A reputation for disappointing people who love you?" "Dad," Simone started. "Did you plan this with him?" I asked her directly. "The lie about the accident, the lie about canceling, was that your idea or his?" She didn't answer. Which was an answer? "Both of you," I said. "You both decided I wasn't worth the truth." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Someone's baby started crying somewhere in the yard. Someone else coughed. The catering staff stood frozen by the food table, probably wondering if they should leave. "I fixed that pool," I said, pointing at the sparkling water with its ridiculous floating decorations, "because you asked me to, because you said it was for the baby shower, because I thought, foolish as it sounds now, I thought I was helping my family, my daughter, and my grandchild." "You did help," Simone said weakly. "No, I got used. There's a difference. And the thing about being used, once you see it, you can't unsee it." I looked around the yard one more time, at the food and the decorations and the people who'd been invited while I'd been lied to, at the pool that represented everything wrong with this situation, expensive, unnecessary, and built on someone else's sacrifice. "Enjoy your party," I said. "Enjoy the pool. Enjoy the lies you tell yourselves that make this okay." I walked toward the gate, made it 3 steps before Brandon called out, "So that's it? You're just gonna leave?" I stopped, turned back. "That's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave. And tomorrow you're gonna get a bill." "A bill?" Brandon laughed. "For what?" "For $15,000. The cost of the pool repair. The one I did under the understanding that I'd be celebrating with my family. The one I did believing in promises that turned out to be lies." His laugh died. "You said it was a gift." It was. But I don't give gifts to people who spit in my face. And I don't do free work for people who consider my presence an inconvenience. "You can't do that," he said. "The work's done. You never said anything about payment. That's not legally binding." "Watch me." "Daddy," Simone stepped forward, hand on her belly like she was protecting the baby from me. "Please, don't do this. Not over a party. Not over something this stupid. It ain't about the party, baby girl. It's about respect. It's about character. It's about standing for something or falling for anything. And y'all fell." I walked out through that side gate and got in my truck. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Not from anger, though that would come later. From grief. I just lost my daughter. Not to death or distance, but to her own choices, to the man she'd chosen, to the person she was becoming. And there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it except decide who I was going to be in response. I drove home in silence. Didn't turn on the radio. Didn't call my sons. Just drove and thought and felt that fracture in my chest spread a little wider with every mile. When I got home, I sat at my desk and wrote up an invoice. $15,000 for pool repair services rendered. Payment due within 30 days. Interest accruing after that at 8% annually. I mailed it Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, Brandon had called 6 times. I didn't answer. By Tuesday, Simone was calling. I didn't answer that either. By Wednesday, there was a voicemail from Brandon that I almost deleted without listening to. But something made me play it. "Owen, this is ridiculous. You can't bill us for something you offered to do for free. That's not how this works. Call me back so we can discuss this like adults." Like adults. The man who lied about being in a motorcycle accident wanted to discuss things like adults. I called my lawyer instead. My lawyer's name was Patricia Chin. She'd handled my business contracts for 15 years, and I trusted her more than most people I called family. When I walked into her office that Thursday morning, she took one look at my face and poured me coffee without asking. "Who died?" she said, sitting across from me. "Nobody yet. But my daughter might kill me when this is over." I told her everything. The pool, the lies, the party, the invoice. She listened without interrupting, taking notes in her precise handwriting, her face giving away nothing. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me over her glasses. "Do you want the legal answer or the real answer?" she asked. "Both. Legally, you're in murky territory. You performed work with no written contract, no explicit payment terms discussed. Brandon's right that it would be hard to enforce this in court. You said it was a gift. There were witnesses." My heart sank. "But," she continued, "there's a legal concept called consideration and another called false pretenses. You provided valuable services based on specific representations they made, specifically that this was for a family celebration you'd be part of. They materially misrepresented the situation to induce you to provide those services. That's arguably actionable fraud. Could I win? Maybe. Probably not. It would be expensive and time-consuming, and it's family, so the optics are terrible. But you know what you absolutely could do?" "What?" File a mechanic's lien against the property. I leaned forward. Explain that to me. A mechanic's lien is a claim against a property for unpaid work. In North Carolina, contractors have a legal right to file a lien when they perform services and don't get paid. The lien stays on the property until it's resolved. It prevents the owners from selling or refinancing without paying off the debt first. Even without a contract? Even without a contract. The work was done. The value was created. You have documentation of the costs. You sent an invoice. They refused to pay. That's enough. I sat back in my chair, mind working through the implications. If I file this lien, what happens? It goes on public record, shows up in title searches. Banks won't give them loans with an unsatisfied lien. Real estate agents can't list the property without disclosing it. Essentially, the house becomes locked until they pay you or challenge the lien in court. How long does it last? In North Carolina, a mechanic's lien is valid for 180 days initially, but can be extended by filing a lawsuit to enforce it within that window. If you do that, it stays until the lawsuit resolves. So I could tie up their house for months, years potentially. Yes. Patricia's face was serious. But Owen, let me give you the real answer now. This will destroy your relationship with your daughter, maybe permanently. Her baby, your grandchild, will grow up hearing stories about how Grandpa put a lien on their house, how he made their lives difficult, how he chose money over family. They chose lies over family, I said. They chose to humiliate me and take advantage of my generosity. I know, and I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying the cost of being right might be higher than you think. I stared out her window at downtown Charlotte, watching people walk by with their problems invisible on their faces. What would you do? I asked, if it was your daughter. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. I'd ask myself one question. Am I doing this to teach a lesson or to punish her? Because if it's punishment, you'll win the battle and lose the war. But if it's truly about teaching responsibility, about setting boundaries, about showing that actions have consequences, then maybe the war's already lost anyway. You're saying I should let it go. I'm saying you should be clear about why you're doing what you're doing and be prepared to live with the outcome. I thought about Simone as a little girl, climbing into my truck after school, telling me about her day. I thought about teaching her to ride a bike, to change a tire, to balance a checkbook, though she'd forgotten that last one somewhere along the way. I thought about the moment I saw her at that party, surrounded by lies and luxury she couldn't afford, looking at me like I was the problem. File the lien, I said. Patricia nodded slowly. I'll have the paperwork ready by Monday. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. The lien was filed on Tuesday, November 28th, public record, accessible to anyone who wanted to look. Simone didn't call right away. Neither did Brandon. I figured they didn't know yet. These things take time to filter through the system, to show up where people would notice. I went about my business. Had Thanksgiving with Marcus and David. A quiet meal at Marcus's house, nobody mentioning the elephant that wasn't in the room. Went to work, bid on new projects, tried not to think about the grandchild I wouldn't know. Tried and failed. On December 3rd, my phone rang at midnight. I almost didn't answer. Midnight calls are never good news, but some instinct made me pick up. Hello? You son of a bitch. Brandon. His voice was tight with rage, barely controlled. Brandon, it's midnight. Do you know what you've done? Do you have any idea? I sent you an invoice. You didn't pay. I filed a lien. That's how business works. This isn't business. This is family. Family doesn't lie to each other. Family doesn't use each other. You taught me that. We found out today. The realtor told us. We needed to. He stopped, started again. We're in trouble, Owen. Real trouble. We needed to refinance the house to consolidate some debt, and now we can't because of your lien. Pay me the $15,000. Problem solved. We don't have $15,000. That's why we needed to refinance. I sat up in bed, turned on the light. You're in so much debt you need to refinance a house you've owned for 3 years, and you spent money on a baby shower that cost more than most people make in a month. You see the problem here? The problem is you're vindictive. You're punishing your own daughter because your feelings got hurt. My feelings, I said slowly, ain't got nothing to do with this. This is about respect, about honor, about keeping your word, things your generation seems to think are optional. Fuck your generation, he shouted. Fuck your old man wisdom and your lectures and your judgments. We're living in a different world now, and you can't accept it. Language, I said quietly. Remember who you're talking to. I'm talking to a man who's willing to destroy his daughter's life over $15,000. That's who I'm talking to. No, you're talking to a man who built something from nothing and learned that money means something, that work means something, that your word means something. You're talking to a man who won't be used by people who think they're entitled to his sacrifice just because they share his blood. She's crying, Brandon said, his voice breaking. Right now, in the next room, your daughter is crying because her father cares more about money than her. That hit. I won't lie. That hit deep. Put her on the phone, I said. What? Put Simone on the phone. Let me talk to her. Silence. Shuffling sounds. Then her voice thick with tears. Daddy, Lord, that word. That single word in that particular voice. It was designed by nature to break a father's will. Baby girl, talk to me. Why are you doing this? She was crying hard now. Why can't you just let it go? It was one party. One stupid party. It wasn't about the party. You know that. Then what? What do you want from us? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry we didn't invite you. I'm sorry we lied. I'm sorry I'm not the daughter you wanted. Is that enough? I never said you weren't the daughter I wanted. You didn't have to say it. You show it every day. Every time you look at Marcus and David with pride and then look at me with disappointment. Every time you shake your head at how I spend money or what I wear or who I married. I see it, Daddy. I've always seen it. My throat tightened. Simone, and now you're going to ruin us. We're drowning, and instead of throwing us a rope, you're adding weight. Do you understand that? We're about to lose everything. The house, our credit, everything. And you're making it worse. How much debt are you in? I asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was barely a whisper. 80,000, maybe more. Credit cards, car payments, personal loans. We thought we could manage it. We thought Brandon's business was about to take off. We thought, she stopped. We were wrong. $80,000 at 22 years old with a baby on the way. And you thought lying to me was better than asking for help? You would have said no. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because you've been saying no my whole life. No to the prom dress I wanted. No to the car I wanted. No to the college I wanted. No, no, no. Always no. Always some lesson about money and responsibility and doing without. And I'm tired, Daddy. I'm so tired of being the daughter who disappoints you. You never disappointed me, I said. Not until you lied. Not until you chose a man over your family. Not until you looked at what I built for you, not just money, but values, character, integrity, and decided it wasn't worth holding on to. Remove the lien. Please. We'll pay you back. I promise. With what money? You just said you're $80,000 in debt. We'll figure it out. But we can't do anything with that lien on the house. It's like you've got your foot on our throat and you won't move it. Please, Daddy. Please. I closed my eyes. Saw two paths stretching out in front of me. One where I backed down, removed the lien, let them off the hook. Watched them go deeper into debt, make worse decisions, learn nothing. Watched them drag my grandchild down with them. And one where I held firm, taught the hardest lesson, became the villain in my daughter's story for the rest of our lives. Never held my grandchild. Never saw Simone's face light up again at the sight of me. I love you, I said. I need you to know that. Everything I've ever done, every no I've ever said, every lesson I've tried to teach, it all comes from love. Then show me. Remove the lien. I can't do that, baby girl. I wish I could, but I can't. Her crying intensified. Then we're done. You hear me? We're done. You'll never meet your grandchild. You'll never be part of this family. You chose money over us, and I'll never forgive you for that. I chose truth, I said. I chose consequences. I chose to be the man I taught you to respect, even if respecting him means you have to hate me for a while. Not for a while. Forever. The line went dead. I sat there in my bed, phone in my hand, 68 years old and feeling every single one of them. Marcus called 10 minutes later. Dad, I just talked to Simone. She's hysterical. What's going on? I told him. Jesus, Dad, a lien? That's nuclear. What would you have done? He was quiet. I don't know, but I know this. You just lost your daughter. You know that, right? I know. And the baby, your first grandchild. I know. Was it worth it? $15,000. Was it worth losing all that? I looked at the photo on my nightstand. Simone at 6 years old, missing her front teeth, sitting on my shoulders at a construction site. Both of us covered in dust and laughing. Ask me again in 10 years, I said. I'll tell you then. December came in cold that year. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones and reminds you that winter doesn't care about your plans. The nights stretched longer, and I spent most of them sitting in my living room, pretending to watch TV while actually staring at my phone, waiting for it to ring. It didn't. Simone's due date was December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. I'd marked it on my calendar back in June when she first told me, circled it in red, written, grandbaby. In all caps like that would make the joy I felt permanent somehow. Now that date loomed like a deadline I wasn't allowed to meet. David came by on a Tuesday evening, let himself in with the key I'd given all my kids, found me in the same spot I'd been in for 3 days, my chair, my cold coffee, my silent phone. Dad, you look terrible. Thanks, son. You always know what to say. He sat on the couch, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. Marcus told me about the lean. Course he did. You really not going to back down? You think I should? David was quiet for a long moment. My middle child, the analytical one, always thinking 3 steps ahead. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful. I think you're right about the principle. They lied. They used you. That's not okay. He paused. But I also think you're going to miss watching your grandchild grow up. And 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when you're sitting here alone because Simone still won't talk to you, will that principle feel worth it? You think I'm wrong. I think you're hurt. And hurt people sometimes burn bridges they can't rebuild. I looked at my son, 25 years old and already wiser than I'd been at 50. Your mama, I said quietly, she would have known what to do. She always knew how to be firm without breaking things, how to love without enabling. I learned business from life, but parenting, I learned that from her. And without her here to tell me if I'm doing this right, you're flying blind, David finished. Yeah. Dad, can I ask you something? And I want you to really think before you answer. Go ahead. Is keeping that lien on the house going to change anything? Is it going to make Simone suddenly understand money management? Is it going to make Brandon become a different person? Or is it just going to make you feel like you had control over a situation where you actually have none? The question hung in the air like smoke. When you put it that way, I said slowly, it sounds like I'm the one who needs to learn something. Maybe we all do. Maybe that's the real lesson here, that sometimes being right isn't the same as being wise. He left around 9. I sat there until after midnight, turning his words over and over in my mind like stones in a tumbler, looking for the smoothness that would tell me what to do, but the edges stayed sharp. December 15th. 8 days before Simone's due date. I was at the office going over payroll when my secretary buzzed me. Owen, there's a woman here to see you. Says she's a realtor. Says it's important. I'm not buying or selling anything. She says it's about your daughter. I closed the payroll file. Send her in. The woman who walked into my office was maybe 45, wearing a business suit and an expression that said she'd rather be anywhere else. She introduced herself as Margaret Walsh, shook my hand with the grip of someone who'd learned to be firm in a profession that didn't always take women seriously. Mr. Mitchell, thank you for seeing me without an appointment. You said this is about Simone? It is. I represent your daughter and son-in-law in their attempt to sell their property. She sat down without being asked, pulled a folder from her briefcase. I'm here because the lien you filed is preventing the sale, and I wanted to speak with you directly, if I may. Speak. She opened the folder. They're in significant financial distress. You probably know this. They have multiple creditors, including the IRS pursuing collection. The house is their only significant asset, and they need to sell it to resolve their debts. And my lien is preventing that. Yes, the buyers, a young couple expecting their first child, ironically, are willing to pay fair market value, but their lender won't close with an outstanding lien. Neither will any other lender. So they want me to remove it. They're desperate, Mr. Mitchell, And I'm not just saying that as their agent. I mean they're facing bankruptcy, possible foreclosure. The IRS doesn't mess around. I leaned back in my chair. Miss Walsh, let me ask you something. Did they tell you why I filed that lien? They said there was a misunderstanding about payment for pool repairs. A misunderstanding. I laughed without humor. That's one way to put it. Mr. Mitchell, I deal with family disputes in real estate all the time. Money and family, it's volatile. But at some point, someone has to be the bigger person. Someone has to step back from the edge. And you think that someone should be me. I think you have the power to change the situation. They don't. That's just reality. I looked at the folder in her hands, thought about the papers inside. Sale contracts, debt statements, documents that reduced my daughter's life to numbers on pages. What happens if I don't remove the lien? Margaret's expression softened. Honestly, the IRS will eventually force a tax sale. The property will go to auction. It'll sell for significantly less than market value, maybe 30 or 40% less. That money will go to the IRS first, then other creditors. Your lien would theoretically get paid, but there probably won't be enough to cover everything. And your daughter and son-in-law will still owe the balance on their debts. They'll have to file bankruptcy. Their credit will be destroyed for years. And the baby? They'll have to find somewhere to rent. Somewhere cheap. With bad credit and bankruptcy, their options will be very limited. I closed my eyes, saw my grandchild growing up in a cramped apartment, learning about Grandpa through stories filtered through resentment and anger. How much do they owe the IRS? I asked. About $40,000, plus penalties and interest. And other debts? Another $40,000 to $50,000 across various creditors. $90,000, maybe more. The cost of living beyond your means, believing that tomorrow would somehow fix today. Miss Walsh, I appreciate you coming here. I really do. But this situation isn't about $15,000. It's about my daughter learning that actions have consequences, that you can't lie and manipulate and expect people to bail you out. Even if the person being hurt is your grandchild. The question was a blade, sharp and precise. Especially then, I said, because that child deserves parents who understand responsibility, who know the value of truth, who won't raise him in a house built on debt and deception. Margaret stood, closed her folder. I understand. I wish I didn't, but I do. She paused at the door. For what it's worth, Mr. Mitchell, I think you're going to regret this. Not today. Maybe not next year. But someday, when that grandchild is grown and you've never met them, when your daughter is gone and you can't fix it anymore, you're going to regret it. Maybe, I said, but I'll regret backing down more. She left. I sat at my desk and tried to get back to payroll, but the numbers blurred together like tears. December 20th, 3 days before the due date. Marcus called at dinner time. Dad, you need to come to the hospital. My heart stopped. What happened? Is it Simone, the baby? She went into labor this morning, early. The baby's coming tonight. David and I are here. She's asking for you. She asked for me? Not directly. But Dad, she needs you, whether she knows it or not. I looked at my half-eaten dinner, at the empty house around me, at the life I'd built that felt suddenly hollow. She doesn't want me there, Marcus. She made that clear. She's scared. She's in pain. She's about to become a mother. Whatever happened between you two, right now she needs her father. Brandon is useless. He's freaking out more than she is. Please, Dad, just come. I hung up, sat there for 5 minutes, 10, 15. Then I grabbed my keys and drove to the hospital. The maternity ward smelled like industrial cleaner and hope. I'd been here twice before, once for Marcus, once for David, back when their mama was alive and the world made sense. I found Marcus in the waiting room. He stood when he saw me, relief washing over his face. She's in room 312. But Dad? He caught my arm. Brandon's with her. He's not going to be happy you're here. I'm not here for him. I walked down the hall, past rooms where other families were experiencing joy, toward the room where my daughter was bringing my grandchild into the world without wanting me there. The door was partially open. I could hear Simone's voice, tight with pain, and Brandon's voice trying to soothe her. I knocked gently. Come in, Simone called out. I pushed the door open. Simone lay in the bed, hospital gown damp with sweat, one hand gripping the rail. When she saw me, her expression went through the same cycle it had at the party, confusion, recognition, shock. But this time, something different followed. Relief. "Daddy," she whispered. Brandon stood up from his chair like a guard dog. "What are you doing here?" "My daughter's having a baby. Where else would I be?" "You're not welcome." "Brandon?" Simone's voice cut through his. "It's okay." "It's not okay, after what he did." "Brandon." Firmer this time. "Please, I need him here." He looked between us, jaw tight, hands clenched. Then he walked past me out of the room, bumping my shoulder hard as he passed. I approached the bed slowly, like approaching something wild that might spook. "Baby girl," I said softly. She burst into tears. "I'm so scared, Daddy. I'm so scared and I don't know what I'm doing and everything hurts and—" "Shh! I'm here. I'm right here." She reached for my hand. I took it, felt her grip tighten as another contraction hit. "Breathe," I told her. "Just like when you were little and got scared. Remember? Big breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. You're doing great." The contraction passed. She sagged back against the pillows. "You came," she said, like she couldn't quite believe it. "Of course I came. Even after everything? You're my daughter. That doesn't change, ever." Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm so sorry about the party, about the lies, about all of it. You were right about everything. About Brandon spending, about us being in over our heads, about me not listening to you. You were right and I was wrong, and now everything's falling apart, and stop. Right now, none of that matters. Right now, you just focus on bringing that baby safely into the world. Everything else we'll figure out later." "There's nothing to figure out. The IRS is taking the house. We're filing bankruptcy next month. We lost everything." She laughed bitterly. "You tried to teach me, and I wouldn't listen, and now I lost everything." "You didn't lose everything. You got a baby coming. You got your brothers who love you. You got me." I squeezed her hand. "The house, the money, all that? It's just things. We can rebuild things. What we can't rebuild is lost time, lost moments. That's what I've been learning these past few weeks." Another contraction. She gripped my hand so hard I thought bones might break. I didn't care. "You still mad at me?" "Ow," she asked when it passed. "I was never mad, baby. I was disappointed. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Mad passes. Disappointment teaches." A nurse came in, checked monitors, told us it wouldn't be long now. After she left, Simone looked at me with her mama's eyes. "Will you stay? For the birth?" "If you want me to." "I want you to. I need you to." She paused. "What about the lien?" There it was, the question under all the others. "Let's get through tonight first," I said. "Then we'll talk." At 11:47 p.m. on December 20th, my grandson entered the world. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 20 inches long, full head of dark hair and lungs that could wake the dead. They placed him on Simone's chest, and I watched my daughter transform in an instant from the girl who disappointed me to the woman who held my future in her arms. "Hi, baby," she whispered to him. "Hi, sweet boy. I'm your mama. I'm going to mess up sometimes, but I'm going to try so hard. I promise you, I'm going to try." Brandon came back into the room then, saw the baby, and whatever anger he'd been carrying dissolved. He wasn't a bad man, I realized watching him kiss Simone's forehead and touch his son's tiny hand with shaking fingers. He was just a lost man. A man who'd never learned the things I tried to teach because nobody had taught him first. "He's perfect," Brandon said, his voice cracking. "He is." I agreed from my corner of the room. Brandon looked at me then, really looked at me, not with anger or resentment, but with something that might have been understanding, or maybe just exhaustion. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for being here, for her." I nodded, didn't trust my voice right then. They named him Owen Marcus Pierce. Owen for me, Marcus for his uncle. I hadn't known that was the plan until the nurse asked for the birth certificate information, and Simone said the names out loud. "You're naming him after me?" I asked. "After the man I want him to become," Simone said. "Strong, honest. Someone who keeps his word even when it's hard." Something in my chest, that fracture that had been spreading since the party, began to knit itself back together. Not healed yet, not even close, but starting. At 2 in the morning, after Simone and the baby had both fallen asleep, I stepped out into the hallway. Marcus and David were still there, sprawled in waiting room chairs like they used to sprawl on the couch after church when they were boys. "You met him?" Marcus asked. "I did. He's got his mama's chin and probably his grandpa's stubbornness." God help us all, David said, but he was smiling. We sat there in the fluorescent silence, three men bound by blood and history, watching the night staff move through their routines. You going to remove the lien? Marcus finally asked. I'd been thinking about that for hours. All through the labor, watching Simone suffer. All through the birth, watching life insist on itself despite everything. All through those first moments, watching my grandson try to figure out this strange new world he'd been thrust into. No, I said. Both my sons looked at me. Dad, David started. Let me finish. I'm not removing the lien because it's not my responsibility to save them from the consequences of their choices. That baby in there? I pointed toward Simone's room. He deserves parents who understand how to be adults, how to manage money, how to keep their word, how to face what they've done and learn from it. So you're going to let them lose everything, Marcus said. I'm going to let life teach the lesson I couldn't. The IRS is going to take that house. They're going to sell it. The money will cover most of what Simone and Brandon owe. My lien will get paid from whatever's left, and then they're going to have to start over. They'll have a newborn baby, David said. Starting over with a newborn is brutal. I know. I did it. Twice after your mama died. It's hard, but it's not impossible. And maybe, I paused, making sure of my words before I said them. Maybe starting from zero is exactly what they need. No house they couldn't afford. No cars they couldn't maintain. No keeping up with people who don't matter. Just the basics. Just figuring out what's actually important. And you'll help them? Marcus asked. I'll help them find a decent place to rent. Nothing fancy. Something clean and safe and affordable. I'll make sure that baby has what he needs. Diapers, formula, a crib. But I'm not paying their debts. I'm not making their problems disappear. Those are their dragons to slay. That's cold, Dad. It's love, I said. Real love. The kind that doesn't feel good in the moment, but builds something stronger in the long run. Your mama taught me that when you boys were little, and I wanted to give you everything. She said, Owen, if you give them everything, you teach them nothing. I'm finally understanding what she meant. We sat there until Dawn started painting the windows pink. Then I went back to Simone's room. She was awake, nursing the baby, looking more exhausted than I'd ever seen her. Hey, she said softly. Hey, yourself. I sat in the chair Brandon had vacated. He was down in the cafeteria getting coffee. How you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. A beautiful, perfect 7-pound truck. I smiled. He's going to be a handful. I know. She looked down at little Owen, at his eyes trying to focus on her face. Daddy, about the house. The lien stays. Her face fell. But, let me finish. The lien stays and the IRS is going to take the house. You and Brandon are going to lose it. You're probably going to have to file bankruptcy. Your credit's going to be destroyed for years. I know all that, she said, tears starting. But here's what else is going to happen. I'm going to help you find a place to rent, something you can actually afford on what Brandon makes, and baby girl, he's going to need to get a real job now. Not influencer stuff, not social media dreams, a real job with a paycheck that comes every 2 weeks. He's been trying. No, he's been pretending. There's a difference, but that ends now, because that baby needs to eat and dignity doesn't pay for diapers. She was crying openly now. I messed up so bad, Daddy. You did. But you know what? Messing up is how we learn. I messed up plenty when I was young. Lost jobs, lost money, made stupid decisions. The difference is I had to face the consequences. Nobody bailed me out. Nobody made it easy. And that's how I learned what mattered. I'm scared. Good. You should be. Being scared means you're paying attention. Being scared means you understand the stakes. I leaned forward. But you're not alone. You got your brothers. You got me. We're not going to let you starve. We're not going to let that baby suffer. We're just not going to prevent you from learning the hardest, most important lesson of your life. What lesson is that? That you're stronger than you think. That you can survive losing everything and still have what matters. That material things are just that, things. But character, integrity, the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and know you're doing right, that's forever. That's what lasts. Little Owen made a noise, a little squeak of contentment. We both looked at him. He's named after you, Simone said. I hope he grows up to be like you. I hope he grows up to be better than me, smarter, kinder, more patient. I reached out and touched his tiny hand. He gripped my finger with surprising strength. But I hope he learns what you're about to learn, that the hard road is usually the right road, that easy money disappears, but earned money stays, that people will always test what you're made of, and you better know the answer before they ask. Will you visit us after we move, wherever we end up? Every week, if you want me to. I want you to. She wiped her eyes. I'm sorry I said we were done. I'm sorry I said you'd never meet him. I was just angry and hurt and... I know. And I'm sorry, too, for not finding a better way, for letting pride get in the way of wisdom, for not being the father you needed in that moment. You were here tonight. When I needed you most, you were here. That's what matters. We sat there until Brandon came back with coffee and found us reconciled. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough to start building again on better foundation. The house sold at IRS auction 3 weeks later on January 10th. Got $240,000 for a property worth close to $350,000. That's what happens when the government wants its money and doesn't care about waiting for the best offer. The math worked out like this: $40,000 to the IRS for back taxes, $15,000 to me for the lien, another $20,000 in various fees and auction costs. That left $165,000. Sounds like a lot until you subtract the $185,000 mortgage they still owed. They walked away $20,000 in the hole on a house they'd owned for 3 years. The other debts, credit cards, personal loans, Brandon's failed business ventures, those got discharged in bankruptcy. Their credit scores dropped to numbers I didn't know existed. They'd be rebuilding for 7 years minimum. I helped them find a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy, $900 a month, small kitchen, smaller living room, 1 bathroom. The kind of place I lived in when I first started out, when every dollar mattered and luxury was having heat that worked. Brandon got a job at a logistics company, entry level, $45,000 a year, half what he claimed he'd make with his social media empire. But it was real. It came with health insurance and a 401k and a boss who expected him to show up on time. Simone stayed home with the baby. They lived on Brandon's salary, which meant they lived tight. No eating out, no designer clothes, no keeping up with anyone. They were miserable for about 6 months. But somewhere around June, something shifted. I noticed it when I came by for my weekly visit, the second Saturday of every month, regular as clockwork. Brandon answered the door, and he looked different. Not just tired. Every new parent looks tired. He looked grounded, like his feet finally touched earth after floating for years. Owen, come in. Simone's just finishing up nursing. The apartment was clean but cluttered with baby things. Not expensive baby things. Practical ones. Hand-me-down furniture. Thrift store toys. The kind of stuff you get when you can't afford pride. How you doing, son? I asked. I'm okay, actually. My boss is talking about promoting me to supervisor. It's only a $5,000 raise, but it's something, and we might be able to move to a 3-bedroom by the end of the year. That's good. That's real good. Simone came out with little Owen, who was now 6 months old and developing a personality that reminded me too much of myself. Hey, Daddy! She kissed my cheek. Look who's sitting up now! We spent the afternoon together. Nothing fancy. Played with the baby. Ate sandwiches. Talked about regular things. Work schedules, teething, whether to start solid foods yet. At some point, while Brandon was changing a diaper, Simone sat next to me on the couch. You were right, she said quietly. About what? All of it. The spending, the lies, the consequences. I hated you for months, Daddy. I blamed you for everything, for the lien, for losing the house, for all of it. I know. But now I see what you were doing. You were letting me grow up. Finally, at 22 years old, I'm finally growing up. Better late than never. We save money now. Did you know that? We have a savings account. It's only got $1,200 in it, but it's there. Every month, we put something in. Even if it's just $50. Because you taught me, finally taught me, that peace of mind is worth more than anything you can buy. I looked at my daughter, at the woman she was becoming, and felt that fracture in my chest finally heal completely. I'm proud of you, I said. Not for losing the house or going through hard times, but for what you're learning from it, for who you're choosing to become. I couldn't have learned it without you letting me fall. If you'd removed that lien, if you'd bailed us out, I'd still be making the same mistakes, still living beyond our means, still lying when things got hard. Probably. Definitely. She paused. Thank you for loving me enough to let me fail. Most parents can't do that. Most parents don't have to watch their child name their baby after them and then lose everything in the same month. She laughed. Yeah, that was rough timing, wasn't it? Little Owen, my grandson, my namesake, started fussing. Simone scooped him up, and I watched 3 generations in that moment. Her as the mother, him as the future, me as the past that finally made sense. That brings us close to current times, close to where I need to pause and let what I've told you settle in, because this story doesn't end here. There's more coming, more lessons, more consequences, more moments where I had to choose between being liked and being right. But before we get there, I need you to sit with this part, with the weight of what it means to let someone you love experience the natural consequences of their choices, with the question of whether teaching a hard lesson is worth the temporary loss of relationship. Comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you think I was right or wrong. Tell me about a time someone let you fall so you could learn to stand on your own. Because the next part of this story gets darker. The next part tests everything I thought I understood about family, loyalty, and the price of standing firm. But we'll get to that in the next time I see you. For now, just sit with this. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is nothing at all. Sometimes letting people face their own consequences is the only way they'll ever learn to make better choices. And sometimes the cost of that love is higher than you ever imagined paying. My name is Owen James Mitchell. I'm 73 years old, and this is the story of how I lost my daughter to save her. More coming soon. Stay with me.